when you look at depreciation and you bringing that across against the income you're making from your commissions, it cuts your tax burden down substantially. So every agent really should be buying something at least every other year, if not every year.
If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall DeCleared. Let's go, baby. All right, here we go. Agents, welcome back. It's awesome to have you today. I'm excited to speak with our guest. His name is Jim Young. And in this discussion with Jim, he's a senior vice president for Edina Realty. He does recruiting of their agents, training of their agents. And so you're going to learn a lot about building a team, what it looks like on their end, how they are managing the large team that they have, their recruitment process. We talk about splits a little bit and that sort of thing. I mean, it varies all over the place, but you're going to learn their approach that you can apply to your business. So if you're trying to grow by one agent, if you're trying to get an assistant on, how that looks and what his advice is on that front. We also talk about investing in real estate. And he's a huge advocate for going out and investing in real estate as a real estate professional. You should do it. You need to do it. And we talk about why. So stay through to the end. Listen, he has some great advice, a ton of experience. He's been in real estate for 23 years. And again, he's brought on trained agents, recruited agents. And so he is an expert at growing a business and growing a real estate team. So as always, if you're getting value out of the show, go on, please. And listen, anywhere you listen to the podcast, like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps us a ton. We're trying to get the top 1% podcast worldwide. And with your help, we can do it. Here we go, Jim. Why don't we start very quick overview of how you got into this space in the first place? Like, what was your intro into real estate?
So I was going to the University of St. Thomas, which is a private school here in Minnesota. And at the time, Ron Peltier's son, JP Peltier, and I were classmates. And we knew each other kind of from high school. We went to high schools that were basically one little city apart. And my dad was in the construction business. He owned a large commercial construction company. And JP's dad was running Edina Realty. So we started talking. Well, I was in the entrepreneurship program there. And they had a scholarship if you went out and started your own business. We got together and we started a landscape business. And from time to time, his dad and I would meet because I was doing some project in their neighborhood, putting in a sprinkler system, building a retaining wall, just college kids. And I got to know his dad. And he's like, how are you finding all these landscape jobs for you and JP? And I'm like, well, I'm knocking on doors and I'm looking at a new house being built and going and talking to the people when they're there at night. It's like, you should do real estate. You could do great at real estate. So I always kind of thought about doing real estate. And when I graduated, I reached out to Ron and thinking about doing real estate. And he set me up with a great mentor and a great office to start in that had good agent development, good support, good coaching. Got into real estate. That's about 27 years ago now. My first year, so you're going back to 1996, I did pretty well. Made 60, 70 grand, something like that. And then the next year I was into the six figures. And by my third year, I was a top producer in that office. And then by, my fourth, fifth, and sixth year, I was doing more than 20 something million a year. And of course, that's back in early 2000. Came along, got connected to a builder, and then my business was really growing from that. And then I kind of took the road less traveled. I got to about the 10-year mark, and I kind of decided that I would rather lead than follow. And some of the senior leaders at our company were a little long in the tooth. And so I decided to become an office manager. It was a pay cut. But I said to myself, well, I can bridge the difference in pay by having this stability. I'm going to buy more investment properties. And I'm going to have all this real income and passive losses going on over here. And I'm going to average this out and then hopefully move up. And so that's kind of been my path. Started managing offices, got known for turning some of them around that were not doing super well. And then that earned me the next job. Obviously a reward for a job well done is another job, and became the regional vice president. And then from there, I was frequently contributing to trainings. And then eventually they just said, why don't you oversee that as well? So that's what brings me here today.
Yeah, that's a great story. So I guess when you're ramping up and how you guys look at the turnover of non-performing offices. So typically when you're doing that, are you guys going and acquiring another book of business or brokerage and then bringing it into the fold and then you're turning that around? Or is it internally, you guys already identified, man, you guys are sliding over here.
Yeah. The acquisition of another office or another company is such a rare thing because there's nothing there if the agents don't stay and produce. And sometimes those 7 to 10 agent companies, the lead dog there is the owner. If you're buying their book of business and they're just going to get out of it, you're basically paying for something that's going to go away. For us, we have between Minnesota, Western Wisconsin, and now we have some in the South Dakota, but between Minnesota and Western Wisconsin, we're talking about we have like 60 offices, and the average office has 40 agents. So you could have an office that's underperforming because it's got way too much square footage, or the manager's been not great at attracting new talent. To be a successful manager, you have to attract people, train them, and retain them. And some people are good at attracting. They're terrible at agent development. So they don't train them up. And when you don't train them up, you can't retain them. They phase out. So sometimes you have to go in and revitalize that. And some offices, they just do so well for so long and that your population kind of ages out. So it's always about developing good leaders.
Yeah. At some point, I'm kind of curious, the model that you guys have used that works. This is and growing a business and like expanding and bringing on new agents. So how do you balance the need to grow the business and bring on more agents while you maintain the quality service to the clients?
A couple things. One, you want to bring on not every new agent. There's so many companies in the market that I guess I would call body shops. They'll gobble up. You'll have a 180 person office, a mega office, right? And they'll gobble up another 100 people a year and 90 of them will fail. Terrible for your brand, terrible for development, because now real good producers are wearing the same branding as somebody who just was a hack, right? They've got 3 other jobs, they got their license, and they never panned out. For us, that's not our model. We want to start with really good people and attract a fair amount of people, be in the top 2 or 3 recruiters in the market, but not just pushing people through the system, right? Second thing is you got to develop our claim to fame at Edina. 50% of our agents have been here more than 10 years. That's crazy. And our new agents, typically our fallout rate is about a third of what our competitors are. They're falling out at 60 to 75%. We're falling out at about 20, 25. So a new agent comes in, we're keeping them longer because we get them onboarded appropriately. That's really what it has to be. If you're bringing on people that are going to diminish your good people, then that's a bad model.
For sure. What's the time frame? You have a new agent coming on, and if you're focusing on not fresh out of real estate school, maybe, what's your key focus?
Yeah, well, and that's a huge part of new people that are coming in. We're just not going to be doing the cattle call like these do, or they're bringing in, like I said, from their one single office, they might bring in 100 new people a year. Where us, with a 50-person office, we're going to bring in 15. And from that 15, we're going to keep 10. And from that 10, they're going to end up being here on average 10 years.
Then when somebody's coming in, 1, what are you looking for? And then 2, what is their expectation of, I'm joining Edina. I know that I should be hitting, $1 million in sales or $2 million in sales my first year. Like, is there any kind of metric that you guys track and look at on that front?
The first thing we do is not trackable by a metric, but we want good people. So Emma Rovick, the founder of Edina, and she's not with us today. She's long since passed. But she had this great saying that said, I want you to treat people in a way that if you see them walking down the street towards you, you don't feel compelled to cross to the other side to avoid them. And so we start with trying to hire good people that have, good values, good ethics, and good work ethic. So we start with that. Okay, let's just say that's the bedrock. And from there, we just try to really evangelize them into our culture of, honesty, integrity, and commitment, community, and technology. And so we do a lot of things that go along those lines. One of the things that's really unique about Edina is the amount of agents that help other agents. So that's one of those metrics that we have. Like, are you willing to help other people? Some agents at companies only help other people if they're in their downline. Well, what good does that do? If I help you and you succeed, great. That's a mindset of abundance. And we really try to instill that, indoctrinate that into everyone. In terms of metrics, we'd like people to be at 2 million or more consistently to stay with it. When you think about our average sale price in the Twin Cities is $420,000, right? Or at least for Edina Realty, it is. For the whole metro area, it's in the high threes. People won't think of that when they think of Minnesota. They think it's log cabins and maple syrup and it's freezing. Well, one of the most robust real estate markets in the country. We have huge Fortune 500 companies here and really educated workforce. So at the end of the day, 4 sales a year and you're almost at 2 million.
That's one thing you guys are looking at. What would somebody come join the brokerage for rather than going to the cattle herding shop where they're all going in? It's $100 a year or $100 to the broker per deal. Like, oh, great, I get to keep 99.9% of my commission.
Yeah.
They have those obviously around here too.
The main reason they'd want to join us over them is support. We have an amazing support team that's here. We have a marketing team that's here. We have 3 attorneys that any agent can call 5 days a week and get help. How to write a clause, how to work on something, or if somebody's coming after them, how to protect the agent. Having attorneys at their access, you don't pay anything for that. It's just there for them. Having a marketing team here that creates marketing pieces and hashtags and things that they can also use is huge for them. And then our tech support. But what that really comes back and speaks to is our culture. As I was saying before, we want agents that want to help everybody. And for us, our sales managers don't sell. So that's a huge differentiator. So Randall, if you're a sales manager at Edina Realty and running a 50, 60, 70, 80 person office, you don't go out and work with buyers and sellers. Your sole focus is to help people in the business or getting in the business be successful.
Yeah, I could see that.
And that kind of support is the difference. Giving an agent 100% of 2 deals is peanuts compared to giving somebody 50, 60, 70, 80, 90%. We have all those programs here of like 10 deals. And then their second year, 20 deals. And their third year, 40 deals. That's our goal.
Obviously, you guys have a well-oiled machine there. You guys have been doing it. Somebody looking to either grow their team or bring on more agents, I guess, what do you see are some common mistakes people make when they are looking to grow a team?
Great question. The biggest mistake we see people make when they're trying to grow their own team is they hire way too fast. So here I am, I'm a driver, I'm a producer, and I see this other person that is a hard worker and driven, and I go, I'm going to put them under me, and if we stack ourselves together, I'll be twice as tall as anybody in the office. Okay, well, keep in mind that that other person might not be the right match for you. And when I have to supervise them, so to speak, or manage them, you're saying yes to something. That means you're saying no to something else. That's going to take away from your time as a producer. So the very first thing anybody should ever do is make sure that the person's a personality match. There's some people that love to be a second chair, love to be a supporting actor, and there's other people that want the own spotlight. Now, that other driver that I try to hire and put on my team, they might have their own ambitions. And you're going to work with them for 6 months to a year, and then they're going to take your ideas, maybe your database, maybe even some of your own clients, and they're going to go off on their own. So you have to have somebody that is a match for you and doesn't want to do that. So what we typically would tell people is start with hiring a good admin. If you want extra support and you want to do more, take everything you're doing as an agent that is a $20 an hour job, and let's see if we can shift that to somebody that's more of an admin role. Does that make sense?
For sure. Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you start being able to do more. The average agent can probably do 25 to 30 deals a year before they need admin support. So you shift that admin support, your business grows. Then you say to yourself, okay, now I need somebody to actually work with people because I've got too many clients. That's when you add a buyer agent or potentially a listing specialist. But do a personality profile, Myers-Briggs, DISC. You can go on Tony Robbins' website and take it for free yourself and then have any candidate take it for free. Those are all good ones to do, but you have to be a match. There's kind of the old saying that the only ship that never sails is a partnership. That new person thinks they're going to become your partner. You're going to give them all this business. Now, if you look at today's world, the listings are kind of few and far between, right? So you have to, because inventory is low. So you have to kind of consider, is there enough business for everybody? And if they're just joining you because they want leads,
you have to be able to exponentially grow the business if you add somebody on. You can't, 1 + 1 can't equal 2, has to equal 3 or 4 or 5.
And that's why you start with a good admin.
That's a great piece of advice. And you touched on it. So the Myers-Briggs and that sort of thing. I was going to say, what tools do you guys implement when you're bringing somebody on who isn't just a support person, but you do want that driver? And so do you use the Myers-Briggs? Do you use anything like predictive index or culture index or anything like that within the company?
Within the company, we have some basic ones on our website that somebody can fill out to see if they're fit for even being in real estate. And when you're antisocial or you're kind of afraid of people and all of that stuff, obviously this isn't going to work. For the most part, we try to help with our top agents who are trying to build teams to help them analyze is the person they're bringing in a fit.
Once you have them on, what is your approach to sales training? And then what are some key sales skills that every agent should have?
For us, we do a thing called Edina University. We help agents go through learning everything we have, how we do things, the tools we have. But where agents really fall down, this is true of experience, and they all get caught up doing passive marketing, postcards, bus benches, radio ads, clickbait they spend a ton of money on into social media. So the one skill that everybody should be great at is working their sphere. Because if you work your sphere, there's very low rejection. And you should try to build a relationship-based business. Don't call people to ask them if they're looking to buy or sell real estate. Call people to ask them how their life is. And we talk about the acronym FORD. How's your family? Randall, what's your family up to these days? How are your kids doing? Is your daughter still doing dance? Whatever it might be. I want to learn about that, and I want to put those notes into a CRM that tells me when I should follow up with you. Then I talk about occupation. Hey, what's new at work? How's your podcast going? How many followers you have? Because the more you talk to me about your life, the better you feel about me being in your life. And then, of course, recreation. You do anything fun? COVID's over. You're going to travel anywhere? What's your plan? And then, of course, dreams. So family, occupation, recreation, dreams. I wouldn't be in real estate if I didn't ask you, Randall, do you think you guys will move in the next few years? Are you outgrowing that place? If not, that's totally okay. I'm just curious where you're at. So you don't need a big script. You can just have a conversation. And the one skill people need to have is work in their sphere, having conversations, and then following up with people based on what they hear. Your next question should be embedded in their last answer. And I think our agents in general have gotten away from that. They listen to respond instead of listening to understand. They don't role play ever. And they go, yeah, I'm doing tons of marketing. I got an ad on Facebook, LinkedIn. I got a new web page. That web page is getting out there. 100 people saw it this month. Well, that's meaningless. It's all passive. Requires somebody to see it and say, I'm going to call Randall. What you need to do is be an active marketer, work your sphere, do client events, go be toes to toes, nose to nose as much as you can. One little tip I'll give you, opinion leaders are really the hyper category. They're the super fruit, so to speak, of your sphere. Everybody knows people that if you and I were having a conversation about cell phones, about car tires, somebody that leans in and goes, are you guys talking about tires? Because if you're going to get new tires, you got to go see my friend Ted. Ted at Ted's Tires is unbelievable. Tell him I sent you. We have those people in our lives, and you need to go and have what we call breaking breads once a week with an opinion leader. And it's not about real estate. You go to opinion leader, hey, Randall, how are you? What's new? I want to sit with you because I really think you're smart. What do you think the world's going to do with this interest rate business? What do you think is going to happen to real estate? And you just let them give their opinion. And then you know what they do? They go back to their real world and they tell everyone to work with you. Randall goes back to your sphere group and says, you should work with Jim. He's awesome. I kind of mentor him. Opinion leaders are fundamental. Your sphere is fundamental. But being an active marketer and not a passive marketer is fundamental. One more tip. Here's a little bonus one. You don't have to look any further than your Facebook app right here. You can open it Facebook every morning, scroll through. You're going to find at least 5 people that you should call. Don't hit like. Don't comment. The whole world's doing that. You need to differentiate. Make a list of 5 people that posted stuff. Take the time to call them. When you get done talking to them, send them a handwritten note. But when you call them, I can say, hey, Randall, I just reaching out. I saw you posted that your father passed. I remember your dad. He was an awesome guy. How are you doing? I guarantee you that everybody else just hit like or I'm so sorry for your loss. But anybody on social is telling you on a daily basis, here's the button I need to be pushed today. Well, go push it. You're going to promote that your podcast just hit 1 million unique listeners. I'm going to call you on that day and say, hey, I'd love to take you out to lunch just to congratulate. That's what meaningful sales is. And that's what we teach our agents. Long answer, but I think your group could probably benefit.
I think all gold nuggets. I mean, everything in there. I'm like, okay, sign me up for the university. I need to brush up on my sales skills. And it really isn't sales. It's the human relationships. Yeah. It's how to best do that in a non-salesy way. It's just be a human. Yeah. And listen, interact. I love that. It really is. It's easy to forget. I remember when I first got into investing, It was very funny at a real estate meetup, and it was an investor meetup. And I told one of the older guys in there, I was like, I don't know, I'm just not getting any deals. I'm not getting any deals. I'm like, okay, what are you doing? I was like, I don't know. I put my website up just like that. I was like, I hung a shingle and expected everyone to come. It was the most idiotic thing, right? And it's so silly looking back on it, but it's true. You just think that people will come and flock to you once you, in your mind, say, I'm open for business, but that's not how it works. If you're not marketing, you're not in business.
You got to take the stairs. There's no escalator.
Yeah, exactly. I like that. Got these sayings. Very good. So I want to ask you then, what are some of the effective strategies that you guys use to attract agents? Whether they're new or, do you have a programmatic approach to either poaching or bringing maybe poaching is wrong, like a derogatory term, but like bringing other agents in who have been in business for a while?
We're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com.
Yeah, the greatest source of bringing in, let's just start with new. The greatest source of bringing in new is putting out a lot of ads, career interest in real estate, giving a lot of support. We currently pay for people to go through the accreditation process to become an agent if we want to hire them. So we do a lot of baiting for that. But the agents that succeed and thrive the most know another agent in the office. So another huge piece of it is just to incentivize your own agents. We give them $2,500 every time they bring in somebody that lands and makes a sale. So we don't wait for years of downline. We just give them $2,500 up front. That's been a pretty good hit. But at the end of the day, it's just talking to your agents and saying, who do you know that wants to get in the business? Do you have a friend that wants to get in the business? Now, naturally, people go, well, I don't want to do that because they'll dip into my book of business. Well, that's not the mindset of abundance.
Yeah.
We have a mindset of abundance. So who do they know that will get into the business? And you know what? That creates instant internal mentors, and that means they succeed. And that's why our fallout rate is not as great as others.
I guess on a business model for you guys in general, what you've seen has worked for brokerages. And I'm looking at this now, just out of transparency, like I'm looking at setting up a brokerage that is in the different types of pay structures, right? And so what splits have you seen work either for new or ongoing agents? And what do agents coming into your culture tell you as feedback? Like, oh, I really like this because you guys set it up 80-20 split and I cap it, whatever. Like maybe too nitty gritty for the call, but I'm just kind of curious.
I think splits are all over the place depending on the market. And what you typically find is the higher the percentage that an agent gets paid, the less the broker can do for them. I mean, that's just factual, right? If on every dollar that comes in, the broker's only keeping 3 cents, I can't buy a whole lot for them for 3 cents. So that means that agent then has to go out and buy a ton of stuff. They got to go out and buy a website. They probably have to go out and buy legal help. They got to have their own office set up at home. Those are all costs of doing business. The other end of the spectrum is the broker that's a little bit like us, where it's all inclusive, and they might be 70% or 80%, with us on a whole year basis. And they're going to get a lot more then. And so it's kind of two ends of the spectrum, but there's everything in between. For you and setting up, people want to go set broker, it's got to be about support. Look, there's 3 things that people are going to gravitate towards. Assurance that you're going to help them hit their goal. If you have a program to help them hit their goals, that's going to attract people. Esteem. They have to be proud to be with your brokerage. If it's got some hokey name, Hot House Realty, as people try to get too cute by half, I'm not proud of that, right? I need to be able to attach to that brand and say, I'm proud to work here. And then I need to feel significant. Randall, you hire me, are we going to have a relationship? Can I call your cell phone? Are you going to give me help when I need it? If people feel assurance, esteem, and significance, you have a high likelihood of attracting them. If you want to just be a mega broker and people coming into the cattle thing, 2 things are really common to that. One, splits that's why they attract them, right? And to be honest, it's a race to the bottom. because, Keller Williams saw this, right? Keller was the lowest, and then EXP comes along and goes, exact same model, but we're going to chop your legs out. Well, now Keller's lowering all their fees to keep people from going to the same exact model for the most part to EXP. Well, race to the bottom. If you're interested in a race to the bottom, you're not going to grow. At least you won't grow meat.
Yeah, it seems to me when I was looking at the different models and just thinking, if you set it up in a certain way, like the only way to grow is to bring on more and more and more and more agents. There's no other way to actually grow the brokerage.
Or make your own agents more productive. If you got 10 agents and they're each doing 10 deals and you get them each to do 20 deals, you just grew, but your hard overhead cost didn't go anywhere.
Sure. Unless if you're capping them. So do you guys institute caps and that sort of thing for your high producers, top producers?
We don't have caps in those ways, but we definitely contribute back in a high level. In fact, we have something here that we don't think is being done anywhere in the country. We have a wealth enhancement plan that agents can either qualify for how long they've been here or about how productive they are. There's a couple different ways in, but it's just like a 401k for independent contractors. So if you work here and you give an example, $200,000 a year, you'd be able to put away about $8,000 for retirement, and we're going to be able to match about $4,000 of that. So you'd have $12,000 going into, and this is for instance, I'm not giving you exact details, but into a retirement plan. Is there a broker out there that's putting money into tax-deferred retirement plan for realtors? No. So no, we don't have a cap for you. We have all these other things that are going to give you more deals, put money into retirement. It's just about bringing value.
Yeah, for sure. That's where the types of models that I had looked at, when you add a cap, it's like you could go and produce $100 million by yourself, but as a broker, we don't get the benefit of that. So I was just curious.
Yeah. And as an agent, what incentive do you have to help me once I get past my 10 deals? I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
And people are starting to see that now. And this market will move people to a rush to quality a little bit.
Well, let's take it down into the investment side. So what advice do you have for agents that are looking to diversify their income or their income streams and start investing in real estate?
I think every agent should be buying in real estate. And probably my biggest regrets is I didn't buy enough. I've got some great properties, but as I look back, I should have been trying to buy at least one every other year. And if you can buy one per year, great. But there's so much power in real estate. I mean, if you look back and if you think of these agents that should have bought stuff in 2009, 10, 11, if you bought a house in 9, 10, or 11 and we're selling it today, chances are it tripled in value. And at the very least, it doubled in value. The other piece of it is somebody paid for it for you. You're not paying for anything. The tenant's paying for it all. And then lastly, when you look at depreciation and you bringing that across against the income you're making from your commissions, it cuts your tax burden down substantially. So I think every agent really should be buying something at least every other year, if not every year, if they can. If you're worried about, okay, I'm not handy or I don't want to take the calls, start with buying condos, start buying townhomes. Somebody else is already cutting the grass and doing the snow. You just have to find a good handy person that if there's something on the interior. The other thing I tell them is rent to people like you. I said, you were a renter once. Yeah, I was. I go, did you wreck anything? Oh, never. Well, rent to people like you. You don't have to rent to anybody. Rent to people that you find have good credit that aren't going to wreck the place. Or people will always worry about getting a 1 a.m. phone call about the basement flooding or a pipe breaking. How often does that happen?
Not often. I can tell you from experience. I've had properties for a long time. And that when I first started buying real estate, it was back in 2008, 2009. I had just gotten back from Australia, and the first houses that I bought one was 10,000, one was 20, the next one was 20. And so those things were home runs. It was like impossible. And my regret is that I wish I just held on to all of them and just kept them rented. I flipped some, and then I owner financed a lot of those. So the notes were valuable.
Let me show a few ideas. So when I got into it, buying investments, I had the same philosophy as Buffalo Wild Wings or Papa John's Pizza. I bought investment properties that were near colleges, specifically private colleges. And the reason I did that was no matter what, you were going to have a pool of renters. Now, the only mistake I made in terms of that is I probably should have diversified a little more, because one of the cities that I had that in all of a sudden did rent control. And so after 20 years, I was like, whoa, that's going to leave a mark here. I probably should have been around some other colleges. But when you buy around colleges, the dorms are expensive. So your rents are typically higher than other parts of the city. And there's just an instant pool of tenants who are kids going to college. Well, that's a good tenant pool. So that's one thing I would share. That can be a good strategy as people get started. Take a look at where the youth is and sort of go from there. One of the other things, that I would say is there was a guy that I worked with. One night we were playing men's pickup hockey, Minnesota. And he was a top level guy at one of the local investment firms. He'd been on CNBC multiple times. And he talked to me about selling a place he had in St. Paul. And I said, why don't you keep it and rent it? And he kind of did that. And then he decided, I kind of like this. And he bought another place. A couple years later, he just started a whole bunch of REITs and was buying millions of dollars worth of real estate. He left the investment firm, and now that's all he does. Because once you get bit with that, buying that piece of real estate, you can see it, touch it, it's there. Really, it's just prior to the .com boom in the United States, 7 out of 10 millionaires had their assets in real estate. Now, the .com, that happens, that changes things, but yeah.
Yeah, it changes, but I think a lot of their money still is going back into real estate in some form or fashion, at least a portion of their portfolio, so that they can get those tax benefits and the depreciation that they're getting for their earned income. Yeah, great advice. Did you ever, on your, you can call it student housing, student rental side of it, did you rent by the room?
The bad part about that is then when somebody's not happy with the roommates, they move out and the other ones don't feel there's a consequence. I did what's called joint and several leases. So what happens is everybody's responsible for the whole place. But even though I'm around private colleges, I don't have that many students renting from me. I just like it because it drives the rent up. So I've got a lot of people that are graduate students or professors or just professionals, but they like to be in the mix around those areas.
Yeah, that's great. Good advice there. Actually, when you're kind of spoke to this, but how do you manage risk when you're real estate investing, and what are some of the common pitfalls that you see other investors making?
Yeah. So common pitfalls that an investor makes is buying and assuming you can raise rent. You see these ads for real estate and it's like, oh, and the rents are under market value. No, they're not. Why would somebody that currently owns it be charging less? Maybe they're a little less because you've got tenants that have been there 3, 4, 5, 6 years and you just want to keep them. And so you haven't raised it as much. But for the most part, don't buy thinking you can raise rent. It's a mistake, because when you can't get that cash flow going, that's a problem. Okay, that's kind of step number one. And then, people are going today, well, I'm not going to buy today because rates are high. That's another mistake. Buy the house. You have a chance to refinance it. Bring your debt service down by refinancing. And I think that can be a really smart thing to do. And when COVID hit, this was the next thing I've done, and it's made a huge difference. When COVID hit, so March of 2020, I immediately went to every tenant I had. So let's say I had 20 units. I went to all 20 and said, listen, because of COVID, I'm not going to be coming here and taking rent checks up. Everybody has to pay electronically. I need a voided check. I need you to sign this form, debit you on the first business day of the month. I have 100% of my units on that. And the Lord bless me, truly. I didn't have one tenant not pay me during COVID. And part of it was I was just paid every month. You had people that were fully gainfully employed going, I don't have to pay, so why would I? But that didn't happen for my tenants, because before they started going down those roads, I had already had everybody on electronic collection. I had a philosophy when I first got started in real estate that I'm going to go to the property every month and collect rent, see what's going on. No extra cars here. They're picking up the yard. When I discovered electronic rent collection, when you think about it, you hire a property manager and they charge you 6-7% a month. The vast majority of what they're doing is collecting rent. I can do that now electronically through the bank, and it costs me $0.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a big tip. What I used to do, and we still do it, I would get a little checkbook deposit slip for every single one of my tenants. It would have their property address on it, and it would have my bank account details on it. They're going to the bank, depositing, like you get a receipt, you get all these things. And so that was the early days of that. And then ACH and all of that, now it makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, I definitely did not want to be going around chasing people down for rent. I just looked at my bank, it's in there, and I could see the deposit slip, what property it was for, was tracking the whole thing. Bookkeeper could see all of that. So that's a good bit of advice. And you seeing it early in COVID, that was smart move to just go out and headed off at the pass.
And you mentioned ACH. That's the correct form they want to use, because some people go, yeah, okay, I'll do electronic. I'll collect from PayPal or Venmo or Apple Pay. Nope. That still requires somebody to take action. So ACH is the only way to go.
Yeah. It's just auto. I don't know what it stands for. Auto check hover. I have no idea.
It stands for easy.
Yeah, easy. Exactly. It is the easy button.
Take a look at where else you can have revenue streams from your properties. Do you want to sell preferential parking? Now, in Minnesota, we have snow. People need to get off the road when they plow. So if I have parking spaces, do I want to start adding on, hey, this will be your designated space and it's $30 a month? Or you got a garage and that's $75 a month. All of a sudden now you're taking in $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 more per property because of the spaces you sell. Do you do coin operated laundry? If you have laundry in there, coin operated for sure. Make sure you have it so that you're charging enough to do it. Where else can you generate revenue from your building?
Yeah. There's a lot of conversation on the space I'm in now. It is around those little tweaks. And there's a lot that's happened, I'd say, in the last 5 years, with RUBS coming back, which is reimbursement of utilities, right? Coin operated laundry, that's been around for a long time. I've seen people start charging for solar screens because, hey, we're going to put a solar screen in. It makes the property look a lot better from the outside. But you can't see people's knickknacks in the windows and whatever they have going on in there. And it reduces their energy bill. So there's a lot of things like that. That is also a great point. You mentioned something else a minute ago as far as the risks go that I wanted to touch on.
When I stopped by the properties at first, just always looking at what's going on there.
When you're investing right now, what are the main things that you're looking at? Are you looking at single family? Or are you doing multis, or what are you doing?
The problem with single family today for me is that market has, and I don't think it's artificial, but it has just become so inflated, right? The inventory is so low. So when you buy a single family home, the chances of you being able to cash flow on a rental basis maybe aren't as great. So would I buy a single family home? Yes, if I felt that the price you were paying was below market. But just to buy a single family home to rent it, that doesn't do much for me. Predominantly because if the people renting it, let's say it's a family, if all of a sudden they can't pay me rent, 100% of the revenue there is stopped. So I kind of believe, let's say you got a young investor who is in the beginning of their real estate career. You should buy a duplex, live in part of it, rent out part of it. Get stable, get your down payment back. In fact, you could buy those on FHA or VA if you have the eligibility. Then buy another one. Once you have 2 or 3, what I really recommend people do is then cross collateralize. So let's say you're 6 years into this and you're buying one every other year, as I talked about. You could go and talk to a local bank and be like, I have $100,000 in equity here, $75,000 in equity here, and $25,000 equity here. They'll look at all that and say, okay, you've got $200,000 in equity. We'll give you $100 on a line of credit. Well, now you got $100,000 cash. If you want to go and put that down on a $400,000 building, that's exactly what I did. Bought my first fourplex by taking a cross-collateralized line against the 3 duplexes that I already had. Bought that fourplex. Cash flow is coming in. I pay that down. Now I add on to what I can cross-collateralize again. And that way you're in a cash position without having cash on hand. And you're only paying interest on the outstanding balance. So it's a good way to grow with other people's money.
The other brilliant thing in that you didn't say is the fact that when you're taking loan proceeds, it's non-taxable. You're not paying as if you earned that income. And so when you take
you're deducting it.
Correct. Yeah. And so you have more buying power essentially with the same dollars. If you were to go out and earn $100,000 and put that to work, you still have to pay taxes on it.
Now, here's what you can't do, though, or you shouldn't do. Don't go buy the big truck. Don't go buy a boat. Don't go buy. But that's where people fall down. You said, what are things people make? Hey, they get 2, 3 duplexes. They think they're Donald Trump and they go, look at all this real estate I have. I've got 100,000 equity. Not if you take it out and spend it on an asset that's going to go down in value. You buy another house through the history of housing in the United States, it keeps going up. You go buy a truck, that is going to be worth less the second you take ownership.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Buy assets that produce income.
Yeah, no, you got it.
Yeah. The information that you shared is on point. Like, I love the history that you've had has given you unique insight into building teams, training teams. So that information has been hugely beneficial. And those tips, I think, one, I can use them, and anybody else that's looking to grow their teams should certainly key into some of the information you shared there. On the investing side, same thing. It's like, take the steps, take those actions, and go out and start investing in some property. As far as the commercial side, have you ever done any kind of syndications or funds, or looked at some of maybe like commercial asset classes that guys are putting opportunities out?
No, not so much. But what I will tell you is the commercial space right now, anywhere in the country that's dealing with office building, if somebody's selling you on buying a building that is not residential or not commercial retail, I'd be very careful. You're already starting to see that with some of the banks. So be very careful of office space, because the people that have to pay those leases, people don't understand about commercial is if I buy a fourplex, anything 4 units or less is considered residential. I can get residential lending on that. I can get a 30-year mortgage and it's fixed for 30 years. Make sense? But this becomes 5 units or greater, or if it's true commercial, an office building or manufacturing site or whatever, now I can get a 20 or 30-year amortization, but the loan is only good for 5 years or maybe 7. Well, guess what? The people that bought 5 years ago are really, really freaking out today, because their rate's about to go from the 4 that they had to 7. In other words, their debt service is about to double, and their rent didn't go up that much.
No, or their exit is now gone, right? So the refinance to a lower rate is gone, but all the new buyers looking at that same deal have that same debt problem. And so it's going to expand the cap rates, meaning the property values need to go down.
The rich are going to get richer. The people that have a ton of cash are going to go, oh, you're in trouble. You're going to lose that property. You're going to give back to the bank. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll save your credit. I'll just buy you out at 65 cents on the dollar. The big whales are going to get bigger, and that's not a good thing. But if you are in a good cash position and you want to buy some small things, you can be a little whale and be in that position today.
Luckily, I got into real estate right around that time. This first happened. I didn't even know. I was just like, I'm buying. I didn't care what was going on in the economy in general. Just like, I'm just going to start buying. So I was kind of to your point as well, just get started and buy something. Even if the rates are high, the basis in the deal, if you know the basis of what a house should trade for in a certain area, and that's the asset class you're looking at, just go buy it, right? You can refinance down the line.
People always need to live somewhere, and they don't always need to work in an office. And like I said, buy a duplex, buy a threeplex, buy a fourplex. And when rates go down, if it cash flows at today's rate, just refinance your debt when it drops into the 5s or 4s.
And ideally, you can pull money out tax-free and go redeploy it if you're in it, right? Yeah. So, Jim, awesome. It's been great getting to know you a little bit. I want to ask you a couple questions to wrap up, just to get to know you a little bit better, non-work stuff. So, what's your favorite pastime not related to business?
My favorite pastime is probably hockey. Coaching or watching or playing. You can see some of my pictures and things behind me. Played hockey here in Minnesota growing up. I support a lot of teams. My kids played, coached them. Hockey for sure would be pastime.
I was lucky in that a friend of mine played ice hockey. It's rare in San Antonio, right? There weren't a lot of people doing it. And he had a tennis court, and we'd go out and rollerblade and play. And so I got to play. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. But then he went up to a school in Lake Placid, New York, and played up there. I got a little insight, but when you said it a minute ago, you're like playing hockey. I was like, yeah, that's like I'm at soccer practice or football practice. It's different worlds. So another one, what's the best thing or memory that's happened to you or your family in the last 60 days or so?
In the last 60 days, we took a great trip to Cozumel, Mexico. We loved going there. My wife's parents retired to that area because they were avid scuba divers. So we had a great trip to Cozumel here in the last 10 days.
I was going to ask if you scuba, because it's the spot.
That's the spot. It's great because between Cozumel's an island, between obviously Playa del Carmen and Cancun, is on the main Yucatan Peninsula, and then Cozumel's the little island across. The channel in between it, filled with reefs. They're not super deep. I mean, you can dive in 30 to 60 feet of water. amazing reef life because there hasn't been a hurricane there in 15, 16 years. And so it's just awesome diving. I did not dive this last trip, but we did quite a bit of snorkeling.
I like going down there. It's a relatively quick trip from Texas to get down there. So it's nice. And the first time we went, we took a little cruise over and we rented a Volkswagen Bug. It was just yellow, just like cruising around the whole island.
You got to look out for the topaz, those speed bumps.
Yeah, yeah. All right. And then last question, name one or two people who've been most influential to the way you think or your success.
First of all, my dad used to tell me, you are who your friends are. So you could find really successful real estate people, and if they're less than admirable, you're going to end up learning that behavior and be less than admirable. So for sure, my dad was helpful in that. And then I had a mentor when I got into real estate named Fred Schmidt. Fred was in my exact position when I started. What we talked about at the beginning here, he knew how to push the right buttons to make you feel good. And when you're happy, you are more productive. And he also was very honest. When you were doing things that are, like you get the agent that spends a ton of money on mailings and this and that, Fred would just look at you sometimes and go, how's that going for you? And you're like, well, what do you mean? He's like, well, it's not working. I've got your numbers. Yeah. He'd say, well, how many people have you taken out to lunch? How many people have you gone and had coffee with? How many open houses have you done? And if you didn't go out and do active things, he'd just be like, well, you're going to continue to be a loser until you go do that. So Fred was great at motivating you and telling you stuff. So Fred was for sure one of them. And then, my parents, both my mom and dad were great. I'm the youngest of 10. We moved here from Spain before I was born. 5 siblings born in Spain, 5 born here. Again, my dad was a contractor building, big stuff. But, just that advice of you are who your friends are. It leads me to kind of one last little nugget I'd say is, if you want to build a team or you want to become an investor, go sit down with people that have done it. They love to tell you how. And just say, how did you do that? What's important to you? There's a great coaching company out there called The Core. And all The Core does is take people doing 30, 40, 50 million and makes them coaches. And then they coach people that want to do 10 million. And then once they get to 10, those guys coach people. It's all about having good mentors. And I think that's really important with real estate.
Is The Core real estate focused or is it just business in general?
No, real estate and mortgage focused. Yeah.
Okay.
They're
That's
looking for independent coaches. Probably my favorite person in the country is Mike Staver. And you can go to MikeStaver.com. You can watch him on YouTube. Mike is amazing because he's not a normal coach. He's not somebody that went through some coaching program. He's a clinician. He has you want to take a deep personality test. He's got one that is a Harrison assessment. It makes everything else look like big wheel compared to a NASCAR. It's 27 pages. It shows you every trigger point, where you react inappropriately, where you can be calm. Mike is by far the best coach I've ever come across. Mike Staver.
That's great. We'll put his link down below as well since you put it out there. So great time catching up, Jim. I really appreciate the information you've shared.
Thanks for having me on. Happy to come back.
Surprisingly, most of the agents we speak with got into real estate hoping to gain passive income and become work optional. However, only 1 in 5 ever start investing. Most are simply too afraid to start. Once you get educated by listening to this show, you'll be able to overcome that fear and become the 1 in 5 who are finding financial freedom. Don't miss a single episode. If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. And we'll catch you on the next episode.